Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vedvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shuklam Brahma Vicharasara Paramam Adyam Jagadvyapiniim Veena Pustakadharineem Abhayadam Jadhyantakarapaham Haste Sphatikamalikam Ch Dadatim Padmasane Samstitam Vande tam parameshwarim bhagavatim buddhipradam Sharada. Shrungakshma Brnnivase Shukhamukhamunibhis Sevyamanaangripadme Swangachaya Vidhutamritakara Suraradvahane Vaksavitri Shambhu Srinath Mukhya Maravaranikarair Pujyamane Vidyam Shuddham Cha Buddhim Kamalajadayite Satvaram Dehi Mahyam. Hari Om. Last class we saw verses 6 and 7. In verse 6 we saw the composer specifically request for forgiveness, for compassion from Devi as mother. As mother who is the most compassionate, he asks for forgiveness of any wrongdoings in sadhana. And he further exaggerates that Devi being of the nature of infinitude, how can she be glorified with finite words? How can any sadhana be worthy of performing to you, of you being of infinite nature? How can I sing of your glories? Thus, please forgive me for not being able to worship you, for not being able to perform sadhana towards you with all of these elaborate offerings. So this he asks for forgiveness, and this he resonates with those who are spiritually weak and asking specifically for compassion from Devi. In verse 7, he asks then for the sadhana chatushtaya for knowledge. The sadhana chatushtaya we know is the adhikaritva, that requirements that make a student fit to approach the guru and receive the knowledge. Makes one fit to perform shravanam, the sadhana of shravanam, for knowledge. This we saw was viveka, vairagya, shamadhi shatka sampatti, and mumukshutvam. All of these we saw in greater detail. So we'll now go ahead and see verse 8. Satchidrupatmano me, Satchidrupatmano me, Shruti manana, Nididhyasananyashu mataha, Nididhyasananyashu mataha. Satchidrupatmano me shruti manana nididhyasananyashu mataha. Satchidrupatmano me shruti manana nididhyasananyashu mataha. Sampadya swantametad Swantametad सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतत् सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतत् रुचियुतमनिशम् रुचियुतमनिशम् निर्विकल्पे समाधौ निर्विकल्पे समाधौ सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतद्रुचियुतमनिशं निर्विकल्पे समाधौ सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतद्रुचियुतमनिशं निर्विकल्पे समाधौ तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजत् तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजत् वरगृहविलसत् वरगृहविलसत् चक्रराजासनस्थे चक्रराजासनस्थे तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यं सत्वरं देहि मह्यं विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यं विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् सच्चिद्रूपात्मनो मे श्रुतिमनन निदिध्यासनान्याशु मातः सच्चिद्रूपात्मनो मे श्रुतिमनन निदिध्यासनान्याशु मातः सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतद्रुचियुतमनिशं निर्विकल्पे समाधौ सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतद्रुचियुतमनिशं निर्विकल्पे समाधौ तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यं विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् सच्चिद्रूपात्मनो मे श्रुतिमनन निदिध्यासनान्याशु मातः सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतद्रुचियुतमनिशं निर्विकल्पे समाधौ तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम्. We'll see the meaning of this verse 8. So after requesting for the sadhana chatushtaya that is needed for knowledge, he comes to approach the Guru in order to seek knowledge from the Guru through the performance of antaranga sadhana through shravanam. So how is this mentioned? Sachid Rupatmano me. May I come to gain in my mind, may I come to absorb in my mind my higher nature that is of the form of Saccidananda. Sachid Rupatmano me. Through which a process he will come to gain this. This is said through Shruti Manana Nidhidhyasana. These are the steps, 3 steps for Antaranga Sadhana, for Jnana Yoga, in order to gain knowledge. Shruti here is the word that is used to represent Shravanam. Shravanam is the process of approaching a guru by which one comes to gain this knowledge, listening from a qualified teacher in the Guru Parampara, and giving our full attention in order to gain and absorb that knowledge from that teacher. Now, one thing about Shravanam is that it must be done from a qualified teacher, one who has studied in the Guru Parampara and must at least be a Shrotriya, that their knowledge of the Shastra must be very clear. So this is Shravanam. The next step is Mananam. Mananam is reflection upon the teachings that are given by the teacher and clarification of any doubts. Our intellect must be thoroughly convinced in order to further meditate upon the knowledge, which is the last step. Thus why all doubts need to be cleared in this process of Mananam. If we imagine a cup of coffee that is there, and if sugar is just put on top of the coffee, then the sugar will not come to be absorbed into the coffee. It'll just sit on top. In order for the sugar to be absorbed into the coffee, for the taste to go assimilate fully through the coffee, then it needs to be stirred. The coffee needs to be stirred. And this is the process of Mananam. This process of Mananam allows for one to assimilate the knowledge and come to abide in that knowledge, which is the final sadhana of Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is that meditation upon knowledge of Vedanta Shastra and that internal assimilation of knowledge, where that knowledge is not just understood, but it becomes that which we stand under. It becomes verily part and parcel of the sadhaka's life. Until the knowledge is put into practice, it is really just theory. It is really just that which information that we listen to. Only through these next two steps, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, does it become our practice? Does it become our sadhana? Does it become our way of life? This is the application part of what we come to gain. And we see that each is a progressive step in this process of Jnana Yoga. That each sadhana must be done well. If Shravanam is not done well, one will not know what to reflect upon. One will not know what doubts to clarify. So if there are no doubts, then Shravanam was not done well, then we see. So if Shravanam is done well, then Mananam is possible. And only if Mananam is done well, if that reflection is done well, if one can focus their mind solely on the knowledge without any disruptions in this process, then only Nididhyasana, that meditation, is possible. So each must be practiced well for the next one to be effective. And Shravanam alone does not give us any value. Only through this process of Mananam, this process of Nididhyasana, does the knowledge become one's own direct experience. Does that anubhuti happen? That only happens by one who can practice all of these three in sequence. So he asks for blessings. Please bless me, Devi, that I may be able to perform these sadhanas in order to gain knowledge, in order to know more about you, know more about my higher nature, my true nature. Sampadya, you should accomplish these for me. Because without Bhagwan's grace, without the strength of Bhagwan, these sadhanas cannot be taken up. These sadhanas are much harder than Bahya sadhana. Bahya sadhana being puja, japa, any other outer sadhana that we do. But these are antaranga sadhana. And thus they are more difficult. So I ask for your grace, your strength in being able to perform these. It is said that mananam is 100 times more difficult than shravanam. And nididhyasanam is even 1,000 times more difficult than that. So he asks for Devi's blessings, Devi's grace in order to perform these sadhanas. Sampadya swantametad ruchiyuta manisham nirvikalpe samadhau. Furthermore, may I have the inclination towards remaining in the state of samadhi. Now, after all these sadhanas are performed well, that sole thought that comes to remain in the mind through the practice of meditation is that brahmakara vritti. And when that brahmakara vritti over and over again is meditated upon, is held in the mind until that brahmakara vritti also comes to drop, that is the state of nirvikalpa samadhi. This is the state of no thoughts in the mind, chitta vritti nirodha, where there are no distracting thoughts, there are no thoughts that are remaining in the mind, because even that brahmakara vritti has come to be dropped. So this is the state of thoughtlessness, the state of niruddha avastha. And this nirvikalpa samadhi is the highest experience of bliss. We see in Bhagavad Gita, Sukhamaatyantikam yattada. Bhagavan Krishna says, he describes this state of thoughtlessness. Sukham atyantikam yattada buddhi grahyam atindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stitash chalati tattvataha. This is that state of abidance in one's true nature, that complete experience of bliss that one comes to gain when there are no thoughts remaining. This is the highest experience of bliss. Sukham atyantikam. And this is done through the process of abhyasa. Even Arjuna asks Bhagavan Krishna that yato nischarati manas chanchalam astiram. How to practice this meditation, because my mind is always going here and there. It cannot stay focused. So how can it be practiced? And Bhagavan says, abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena tu rishyate. That through abhyasa and through vairagya, these can be practiced. This meditation can be practiced. That mind can be put to focus on that single thought. And over time, as that focus comes on that single thought of brahmakara vritti, slowly the mind comes to think of nothing else. The kinchidapi chintayet. And as that is repeated, then also that brahmakara vritti comes to drop. So this abhyasa, this repetition, this practice of meditation is required to be able to get to this state. So he asks, may I please have the inclination towards remaining in samadhi? Because that abhyasa is needed. So may I have the strong desire, may I have the strength and the liking, the enjoyment towards performing this sadhana, this meditation sadhana, so that I may keep practicing, so that I may grow in my sadhana. So the repetition is required, that abhyasa and vairagya, in order to focus the mind on the higher without any distractions. This we had seen in the previous verse where he asked for all the sadhana chatushtaya. We'd seen the importance of vairagya. So this experience of samadhi is the highest experience of bliss. In Drigdrishya Viveka, it is defined as Svanubhuti rasa veshad drishya shabda vupekshatu nirvikalpe samadhisyat. This is the without any, that flame, like the flame in a windless place. It remains steady, always. This is the experience of nirvikalpa samadhi. So may I develop an inclination specifically towards this nirvikalpa samadhi, rather than any other thought patterns. May my mind be focused solely on you and nothing else. May my thoughts come to a complete cessation in my mind with focus only on you. So this he asks from Devi. Then the last line, he says, he's describing Devi, addressing Devi as the one who resides in the Sharada temple. This we've seen in many verses, but this is another description of her. Tungati Ranka Rajad Varagraha Vilasat Chakra Raja Sanaste. Who is she? She is that Sharada Devi who is seated on the curved banks of the Tunga river. This is where that temple is situated. That temple is there. So she is situated in this temple, and she is seated where? She is seated on the Simhasan in that temple. The Simhasan being that sacred symbol, that throne where she sits. That Shri Chakrash Simhasan, she sits there. That is where Devi is invoked and installed. So this he highlights in this last line of the verse. So this verse specifically discusses the approach to the Guru to perform those 3 antaranga sadhanas in order to gain knowledge, reflect upon that knowledge, and come to absorb and abide in that knowledge. Abidance in that knowledge is that final state of nirvikalpa samadhi, when there are no other thoughts in the mind. The mind completely comes to a cessation and one just remains in one's own true nature. This he asks for blessings from Devi for, to perform these sadhanas, which is the goal that we also seek to reach. So through all of these 8 verses in this stotram, we've seen how this author, this sadhaka, comes to every step that is necessary for growth in one's spiritual evolution in order to reach the highest goal of liberation. First, he asks for, may I be blessed with that conviction, that shraddha in the right performance of duties, so that I can come to gain the necessary chitta shuddhi. That through the right performance of duties, one comes to attain that chitta shuddhi that is needed for the furthering in one's spiritual evolution, that is needed to approach the Guru, to be drawn more towards satsang. And through satsang, one comes to gain the viveka, vairagya, shamadhi shatka sampatti. All of this sadhana chatushtaya further grows. So he asks Devi for the blessing for all of these. And in the final verse, we saw how he asks for that strength, that further support in being able to perform the sadhanas of knowledge, shravana, manana, nididhyasana, that finally culminates in samadhi. This whole process we saw over the course of this stotram. And most importantly, he says, Vidyam Shuddham cha Buddhim Kamalajadayite Sattvaram Dehi Mahyam. Please bless me with this knowledge that of Atma Vidya. That is the highest knowledge. No other knowledge can satisfy me. No other knowledge can remove this ignorance of my true nature. Please bless me with this knowledge alone and the chitta shuddhi, that purity of mind that is needed to gain this knowledge. And when Sattvaram Dehi Mahyam, without any delay, may I please be blessed with this knowledge so that I may come to reach my goal, I may come to reach liberation in this lifetime itself. This is his longing for that knowledge, that desire for moksha, which must be how we also are as sadhakas. This whole process is shown in this stotram, beautifully described in the verses. And furthermore, Sharada Devi is described, she is glorified in this stotram in the various ways. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to reflect on this stotram, to learn the chanting for this stotram first, and then also study this beautiful stotram. I learned a lot about Saraswati Devi and her symbolism, and also got to reflect on the process of Jnana Yoga, the process that a sadhaka takes in order to reach that goal with every step laid out clearly through this stotra. And also how Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji had come to establish this Sharada Devi of this form in Sringeri, Sharada Peetham. So very beautifully, all of this was described in this stotram. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to study it and reflect upon it. We'll go ahead and chant the 8th verse, and then we will chant the entire stotram together. Satchidrupatmano me shruti manana nidhidhyasanaanyashu matah sampadya swantametadruchiyutamanisham nirvikalpe samadhau तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् शृङ्गक्ष्मा बृन्निवासे शुकमुखमुनिभिः सेव्यमानाङ्घ्रिपद्मे स्वाङ्गच्छाया विधूतामृतकरसुरराड्वाहने वाक्सवित्री शम्भो श्रीनाथमुख्यामरवरनिकरैर्मोदतः पूज्यमाने विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् कल्यादौ पार्वतीशः प्रवरसुरगणप्रार्थितश्रौतवर्त्मा प्राबल्यं नेतु कामो यतिवरवपुषा गत्ययां शृङ्गशैले संस्थाप्याचां प्रचक्रे बहुविधनुतिभिः सात्वमिन्द्वर्धचूडा विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् पापौघं ध्वंसयित्वा बहुजनिरचितं किं च पुण्यालिमारात् सम्पाद्यास्तिक्य बुद्धिं श्रुतिगुरुवचनेष्वादरं भक्तिदाढ्यम् देवाचार्यद्विजादिष्वपि मनुनिवहे तावकीने नितान्तम् विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् विद्यामुद्राक्षमालामृतघटविलसत्पाणिपाथो जजाले विद्यादानप्रवीणे जडबधिरमुखेभ्योऽपि शीघ्रं न तेभ्यः कामादीनान्तरान् मत्सहजरिपुवरान् देवि निर्मूल्य वेगात् विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् कर्म स्वात्मोचितेषु स्थिरतरदिशनां देहदार्ढ्यं तदर्थं दीर्घं चायुर्यशश्च त्रिभुवनविदितं पापमार्गाद्विरक्तिम् सत्सङ्गं सत्कथाया श्रवणमपि सदा देवि दत्त्वा कृपाब्धे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् मातस्त्वत्पादपद्मं न विविधकुसुमैः पूजितं जातु भक्त्या गातुं नैवाहमीशे जडमतिरलसस्त्वद्गुणान् दिव्यपद्यैः मूके सेवाविहीनेऽप्यनुपमकरुणामर्भकीम्बेव कृत्वा विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् शान्त्याध्यासम्पदो मे वितरशुभकरीर्नित्यतद्भिन्नबोधम् वैराग्यं मोक्षवाञ्छामपि लघुकलय श्रीशिवा सेव्यमाने विद्यातीर्थादियोगी प्रवरकरसरोजातसम्पूजिताङ्घ्रे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् सच्चेद्रूपात्मनो मे श्रुतिमनन निधिध्यासनान्याशु मातः सम्पाद्य स्वान्तमेतद्रुचियुतमनिशं निर्विकल्पे समाधौ तुङ्गातीराङ्कराजद्वरगृहविलसच्चक्रराजासनस्थे विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् विद्यां शुद्धां च बुद्धिं कमलजदयिते सत्वरं देहि मह्यम् इति शृङ्गेरि श्रीजगद्गुरु श्रीसच्चिदानन्द शिवाभिनव नृसिंह भारती स्वामिभिः विरचितं श्रीकमलजदयिताष्टकं सम्पूर्णम्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ।